Last orders for Rachel Reeves. Latest U-turn could be the final straw for Chancellor. Rachel Reeves might be about to get sacked, and the thing that finally does her in could be pubs. Not economic collapse, not failed fiscal policy, not breaking manifesto promises, but Britain's beloved boozers proving to be the final straw that breaks the Chancellor's back. Welcome back to UK Political Insight, and today we're unpacking Labour's eighth humiliating U-turn since taking power, why this latest climb down on pub business rates could mean curtains for Reeves, and whether a government that's reversed course more times than a rally driver practicing handbrake turns can possibly survive much longer with any credibility intact. I'm bringing you multiple videos today because watching Labour's government implode in slow motion is like witnessing a train wreck where each carriage derails individually and you can see the next one coming, but nobody's hitting the brakes. So let's dive into why U-turn number 8 might be the one that costs Reeves her job, what it means when your government's defining characteristic is backing down from everything controversial, and whether Starmer and Reeves can possibly survive this latest shambles. Right, so let's establish the scale of failure we're dealing with here, because context matters. This isn't Labour's first U-turn, it's their eighth. 8 times they've announced policies, faced backlash, and reversed course. 8 times they've shown they either don't think things through before announcing them, or don't have the courage to stand by decisions when challenged. That's not governing, that's flailing. It's political whack-a-mole where every time a problem pops up, they swing wildly and miss. The list of U-turns is genuinely impressive in its comprehensiveness. Farm tax, reversed after farmers protested and the policy proved unworkable. Winter fuel payments, attempted cuts walked back after enormous public anger. Mooted income tax hikes that spooked financial markets, quietly dropped. Benefit cuts, abandoned after backbench rebellion. Grooming gang inquiry, resisted, then conceded. WASPy women pension compensation, promised, then denied, then reconsidered. National insurance rises, breaking a manifesto pledge, then partially reversed. And now business rates for pubs, the latest addition to this hall of shame. Each one individually is embarrassing. Collectively, they paint a picture of a government with no clear vision, no firm principles, and no ability to anticipate consequences. They announce policies that sound tough or fiscally responsible or ideologically satisfying, watch them explode in public backlash, and then scramble to reverse course while pretending this was all part of listening to stakeholders. It's governance by panic, and it's destroying what little credibility they had. The article's question is brilliant. Once is a mistake, twice is a habit, so what does 8 times make? The answer is catastrophic incompetence. It's a pattern so established that people now automatically assume any Labour policy announcement will be reversed within weeks. Why bother taking their pronouncements seriously when you know they'll change their minds the moment things get difficult? It's the boy who cried wolf, except instead of wolves, it's policies. And instead of nobody believing him, the public just assumes he's lying. This latest U-turn on pub business rates is particularly telling because Starmer and Reeves reportedly didn't see eye to eye on it. Starmer indicated help could be coming, while Reeves presumably wanted to stick to the revenue-raising plan. That public disagreement, or at least lack of unified position, shows cracks at the very top of government. When the Prime Minister and Chancellor aren't aligned on major fiscal policy, you've got serious problems. It suggests either poor communication, fundamental disagreements about priorities, or both. The pressure on Reeves specifically is mounting because she's been on the wrong side of every single one of these U-turns. As Chancellor, she's presumably signed off on or actively promoted each of these policies before they were reversed. Her judgment has been proven wrong 8 times. Her ability to anticipate public and market reaction has failed repeatedly. Her fiscal plans have collapsed under scrutiny over and over. At what point does the Prime Minister look at this track record and decide she's not up to the job? The article suggests this pub rates U-turn could be the final straw, and there's logic to that. Pubs are emotionally resonant in British culture. They're not just businesses, they're community institutions, social hubs, part of national identity. Attacking them was always going to generate backlash. That Reeves apparently didn't anticipate this shows staggering political tone deafness. And if this U-turn happens, it'll be yet another example of her pushing policy that proved unworkable and had to be abandoned. What makes all these U-turns particularly damaging is they could have been avoided with basic competence. The article asks, why not simply get the policy right in the first place, which is the obvious question that apparently hasn't occurred to labor. Before announcing winter fuel payment cuts, maybe consider whether pensioners might object and whether you can weather that backlash. Before raising business rates on pubs, maybe talk to the hospitality industry about whether businesses can absorb the increases. Before implementing farm tax changes, maybe consult farmers about impact on family farms. This is basic stakeholder consultation that any competent government does before finalizing policy. You identify affected groups, understand their concerns, model the impacts, adjust proposals accordingly, and then announce something you're actually going to stick with. Labor's doing the opposite. They announce first, consult, never or too late, face backlash, and reverse. It's backwards governance that suggests either arrogance, assuming they know better than affected industries, or incompetence, not understanding the need for proper policy development. The erosion of public trust mentioned in the article is the really serious long-term damage. Every U-turn reinforces that labor can't be trusted to follow through on anything. Their promises mean nothing because they'll reverse them under pressure. Their tough talk is hollow because they cave immediately when challenged. Their policy announcements are worthless because they'll be different next week. When government loses credibility like this, they lose the ability to govern effectively because nobody believes them anymore. This matters for future policy battles. If labor eventually needs to implement genuinely necessary but unpopular reforms, how do they build public support when their track record shows they'll just U-turn anyway? Why should unions accept difficult compromises when they know holding out will probably result in government backing down? Why should businesses plan around government policies when those policies change constantly? The U-turn habit makes future governments nearly impossible. The political damage is equally severe. Each U-turn generates news cycles about government weakness and incompetence. Each one provides ammunition for opposition parties. Each one demoralizes labor MPs who've defended policies only to watch them reversed. Each one emboldens critics who see government backing down validates their opposition. The cumulative effect is a government that looks weak, directionless, and unable to handle the basic responsibilities of office. For Reeves specifically, the question is how long Starmer tolerates this chaos before deciding she's become a liability. Chancellors live and die by economic performance and fiscal credibility. Reeves has presided over multiple tax U-turns, spooked markets with income tax speculation, broken manifesto pledges on national insurance, and now potentially reversing on business rates. Her budget was widely panned. Economic growth has been anemic. Business confidence is terrible. What's the case for keeping her? The counterargument is that replacing her would be admission of failure and create more instability. A new chancellor would need time to get up to speed, would want to put their own stamp on policy, potentially meaning more changes, and the process of removal itself would be politically damaging. Sometimes governments stick with struggling chancellors because the alternative seems worse, but there's a limit to how much failure you can tolerate before the cost of keeping someone exceeds the cost of replacing them. Reeves might have hoped for a better start to 2026 after last year's tumult, as the article notes, but instead she's immediately facing another high-profile cave-in. That's politically brutal because it denies any chance of resetting the narrative. She can't point to a fresh start or renewed focus when she's immediately U-turning again. It's more of the same chaos and incompetence that characterized her first months in office. The pub rates issue is interesting because it shows labor learned nothing from Tom Carriage's fury and the broader hospitality backlash. They watched high-profile chefs and business owners rage about business rates destroying their operations. They saw the political damage from being perceived as anti-business and anti-hospitality, and their response was apparently to initially stick with the policy anyway until pressure mounted and U-turning only when politically unavoidable. That's not listening to stakeholders. That's being forced to back down, which is politically much weaker. If they'd proactively adjusted the policy after initial backlash, they could have spun it as responsive government listening to industry concerns. By waiting until pressure mounted and U-turning only when politically unavoidable, they look weak and incompetent. The outcome's the same. Business rates don't increase as much, but the political optics are completely different. Competent governments manage these transitions smoothly. Labor lurches from crisis to U-turn repeatedly. The broader pattern reveals fundamental dysfunction in how this government operates. Policy development appears rushed and poorly thought through, stakeholder consultation is minimal or ignored, political impacts aren't properly assessed, market reactions aren't anticipated, and then when predictable consequences occur, government panics and reverses rather than managing the situation strategically. That's not a sustainable way to govern. What's particularly damaging is these aren't obscure technical policies affecting narrow groups. These are major issues affecting millions. Pensioners and winter fuel payments, farmers and inheritance tax, pub landlords and business rates, working people and national insurance. These are politically salient groups whose concerns matter electorally. Attacking them was always going to generate backlash, and any competent political operation would have anticipated this. The WASPy women issue is illustrative of the dysfunction. Labor in opposition expressed sympathy and implied compensation would come. In government, they said no, can't afford it, fiscal situation different than expected. Then faced enormous pressure and are apparently reconsidering. So you've managed to anger the women by denying compensation, anger fiscal conservatives by potentially spending